Hello, everyone. I'm Keith Kirkpatrick, Research Director with the Futurum Group, and I'd like to welcome you to Enterprising Insights. It's our weekly podcast that explores the latest developments in the enterprise software market and the technologies that underpin these platforms, applications, and tools. This week, I'm really happy to be joined by Robert Kramer. He's a VP and Principal Analyst with Moor Insights Strategy. And Robert covers data and ERP, really anything related to data. And Robert and I have crossed paths
That's
quite
right.
a bit this past spring. So, really glad that you join us. Welcome, Robert.
Thank you. Happy Friday. It's been a long
Yes,
week. Good couple weeks though.
it has. It has. Well, as I mentioned in my open, we've been to a bunch of events over the past few weeks, and some we've attended together, and some we haven't crossed paths with. But I wanted to start with SAP Sapphire, which is an event that you went to, big event you
Yep.
attended in person. I was wondering if you could just kind of give us a brief synopsis of the event and any kind of key
Yeah.
takeaways you had.
It's a very interesting event. It's their big event of the year. Lots of customers, and as we know, SAP is in good standings. They had great earnings, and they have some key strategies around data and surprisingly AI. Everybody does, but they're embedding AI throughout all their solutions, and they're trying to improve some of their products. And some of those are rise and grow to move some of their customers off-prem to off-prem from on-prem, which is a big problem. And we'll get into that with the data management discussion that we're going to talk about. But they had a lot of their new announcements were around that adoption to cloud. A lot of their features are only going to be available in the cloud. So if you're on-prem, you're kind of stuck. They have some new tools available for these integrations with their business technology platform. And they have some of the things that I think were really key is their new partnerships. I'm not sure if you're familiar with some of those, but with Microsoft and Google and NVIDIA and Accenture. So, and also a key acquisition with WalkMe. So everything is really around moving these customers to the cloud to take advantage of the solutions there, and also the fact that you don't want to have multiple versions. All these companies having their ERP on-prem, it's impossible to support them. So it's really centered around that and AI. So that
Yeah,
was a long-winded answer, though.
no, absolutely. Robert, you mentioned a really good point there. If we think about SAP and what they're trying to do, obviously they want to get folks to move to their cloud-based offering because for
Hmm.
obviously they can deliver innovations to scale there. They're obviously going to generate a lot of revenue when you're moving to
Yes.
S4 in the cloud. I guess what is the big sort of hurdle though for organizations? Because it sounds great on paper. Hey, let's move to the cloud. What are the big challenges involved? Why is there such an effort in getting companies to move there?
Well, a lot of companies have bastardized their system, so they have an enormous amount of customizations. And when you have these customizations, when you migrate, those customizations don't necessarily go forward. So it's one of those things where if you move, you have to either make the changes in the new implementation, in the new software that you're going to adopt, or you have to get rid of it. And it's one of the problems that they don't see the ROI, and it's a huge process of change management and data quality and getting all this information to the new system. But SAP is going to take the stance that these features that they're releasing are only going to be available in these new versions. I don't blame them, but at the same time, it's creating a revenue stream for them that they're forcing these clients to go there. And it's going to be an issue as we continue down this way. But at the same time, there has to be, from a software provider's perspective, they can't support all these versions at the same time. But they have a monster of an application, and you have to have an ROI and a business impact for these companies to want to go through this program of Rise, which is their cloud migration offering.
Right. You also referenced something really interesting. I think it was right around the time of Sapphire that SAP announced their acquisition of WalkMe, which has
Yep.
their digital adoption platform. Could you
Hmm.
talk a little bit about why is that significant for SAP? Because obviously, if I understand correctly, they paid about a 45% premium based on
They did.
WalkMe's share price.
Well, that's a good question. We'll have to see, what that does. But part of the problem that they're realizing is, so about as you look at the global enterprises, 70% of the data is still on-prem. About 50% of all global enterprise softwares are ERP and SCM. So there's an enormous amount of money, I guess you would say, in these types of applications. So how do they get the adoption? This is part of that. It's a software that could help with the change management, with the adoption of programs like Rise to move companies over from the on-prem to the cloud. It's a way to help the migration less painful. And I think they're seeing that they have a problem there, and companies are not adopting this Rise program as much as I think that they are, because there's an enormous amount still on-prem, as we just discussed. Let me ask you a question. If you owned a manufacturing company and you had, 10 facilities, multi-company, multi-region, multi-language, and you have, hundreds of, customizations, are you going to move your system into the cloud unless you see some dividends that make sense? And so I think that that's the architecture that has to happen behind SAP's endeavor in this. They have to show these companies that ROI.
Right. And one of the things that you mentioned there, if you have such a huge lift, there's got to be a lot of
Yep.
expense around that. And if you're a manufacturer and you're a public company, you're operating on a quarter to quarter basis. Making
Hmm.
that expenditure is a lot harder when you go, well, we're spending all this money and it's going to take us 12 months, 18 months, 24 months to realize ROI. Sometimes that's a hard case to make when you're evaluated on a quarterly basis. So yeah, good point there.
Yeah, but also, do you have the people and the processes to do it? I think that's a huge, component to this, because you have to have the talent in house and you have to have the processes to get it done. Otherwise, you could have the great software, but you can't get it implemented. And then the data quality issue: is the data good in the on-prem system? What changes have to be made to get it to move? So this is why it's going slow.
Yeah. I think that's one of the reasons why they acquired WalkMe because their digital
Yep.
adoption platform, one of the things that does is gives more visibility into what they actually have deployed on-prem or perhaps in the
Hmm.
cloud or a hybrid environment. You can't do any sort of, lift and shift or whatever if you don't even know what you have. I mean, what licenses do you have that are being underutilized? Are you having legacy applications that have been sitting out there and may contain data that is critical to the organization. It's really great to be able to get that visibility, and I think that's one reason why they did pay that premium.
Yeah, and I can't recall the names of the applications, but they've bought in a few other companies that are business process companies and also IT, portfolio management and architectural
Yeah,
companies to help with this program that they're trying to get done. So
yeah,
they got a long way to go, but that was really the basis of the of Sapphire. It wasn't eye opening, but it was what was expected.
right, right. I think you were mentioning Signavio and LeanIX were the two companies that
Yep,
they recently
yep,
acquired. Yeah,
that's
yeah, no,
correct.
that's great. Great wrap up there. I mean, it certainly, I was able to join a few sessions from the plane. Don't tell the airlines I was screaming, but certainly very interesting.
And you went to Pega World, correct?
I did. I just got back from Pega World. It was held in Vegas again, lovely Las Vegas. I think the temperature 107 degrees, but it was a dry heat, as they say. But
Yep.
really interesting event because if you think of what Pega is trying to do, they're trying to carve out a niche for themselves, really focusing around optimizing workflows, because ultimately that's really what we're looking at here. It's great to sort of say we can use generative AI to summarize a call or generate an email, but really you only get those benefits where AI is distributed throughout the entire organization. And really a couple key takeaways I have from the event. They have mentioned, and it was so good to hear this, that they're not just talking about generative AI, because as much as that is a, sort of the shiny object on the hill, they've said,
Yep.
look, you have other types of AI, predictive analytics based AI, you have decisioning AI. All of those are going to deliver a lot of benefits to organizations in terms of enabling automation, productivity, and again, the thing they really kind of honed in on was the use of generative AI to really sort of enable organizations to complete that digital transformation, looking at those workflows, seeing where there's inefficiency, and then using AI to connect the dots to go, hey, instead of
Good
going
point.
step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, we can go step 1, 6, and whatever, and base that on any kind of data that we're getting back saying, hey, we're going to miss this SLA, or we're, doing two things twice. So I thought that was really interesting.
So their main play is data and AI, right? But where are they? What's their vision after that? Do they go through that?
Sure. Well, one of the things that I wanted to also mention is they also highlighted this application is called Gen AI Blueprint. Now, this is
Hmm.
essentially a tool that people can use. You don't have to be a data scientist. You don't have to be a developer or an IT to say, hey, I'm working in, let's say, finance, and currently our bill pay application is clunky. It doesn't work well. There are issues. They set up this application that uses generative AI to go in and say, I want to create this application. You put in the parameters of here's what you'd like, what data you need, here are the processes you'd like to do, and it will mine not only Pega's sort of repository of insights over the past 40 years, but it will actually go out to the internet and try to pull in relevant information to help you create a blueprint or an architecture for an application. You still need people to go, yes, that's good. Yes, that meets our policy. Yes, it meets regulatory concerns. But once you have that, then you can take that blueprint, put it through App Studio, and develop an application. And the goal here is to increase productivity.
That's neat.
CEO Alan Trefler said 50% productivity increase. So we'll see if that actually happens.
Wow.
It's a bold claim, but I played around with this blueprint, and I was impressed.
It sounds really cool. Where was it at in Vegas? Was it at a nice
It
place?
was at the MGM Grand, which
Okay.
I'll be honest, no offense to any hotel there, but all hotel rooms look the same to me. All conference rooms look the same to me.
I
So
kind of do.
yeah, absolutely, an interesting event. The other thing I wanted to bring up here is we were at an event together down in sunny and somewhat humid Austin not too long ago for Zoholics.
Yeah, I thought, so I got this new hat, I mean, this is a heck, I mean, they welcome you to Texas and this is what we get. I couldn't even check it, I had to carry it and I wore it on the plane because, but I don't know. What do you think? I'm a
Looks
true
great.
Texan now.
There you go. The hat I got, the security folks at TSA made me wear it through the security scanner. I think more as a joke than anything else. But yeah, well, what were your impressions of first? Give the folks a brief overview of what Zoholics is and any kind of takeaways
Yeah.
you had.
Yeah. So it was my first Zoholics, and Zoho is it's a CRM and an enterprise app, all in one. And they have about 55 different applications that you can choose from, something like that. And it just depends where you're at on your businesses, what you need. And so when I went there, I was really pleasantly surprised. It's like cult following. There's a lot of customers that believe in it, love it. It's really for companies that are small to medium size. They have a very, I guess, a cost perspective of a low entry to get customers in, and they've expanded to the enterprise section, meaning to have accounting and billing, and I guess they have some inventory control and things of that nature to kind of lead into companies that are medium size vendors of like a NetSuite or a Sage to kind of take some of that business. What I got out of it, I guess, at the end of the day was I like that you can control your data and keep it under one roof. I mean, I think as these companies go down their growth stages, the data management is a key component, but also your technology stack. And I have something as we get further down in this discussion today. The technology stack is a big deal because when you open yourself up to have all these different types of software applications, there's problems that will occur. So I think they really hit a void that I was pleasantly surprised about. What was your thoughts?
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, if you think, like you said, Zoho's sort of sweet spot right now, it's SMB to mid market. They do have, a few, I guess, enterprise, and I'll put that in air quotes, clients. But really, if you think about their pricing, it is geared towards smaller organizations so they can actually do a land and expand thing, saying, hey, we need a CRM. Oh, I'm happy with the CRM. It's reasonably
Yep.
priced. It works pretty well. Hey, I'd like to pull in my e-commerce solution. I'd like to pull in my billing solution. To your point, I think for these smaller organizations, they need to be worried about data management, data governance, because of the fact that they don't have these massive staff, resources to handle that, to pull in other consultants, having that on a
Right.
single platform. And then, of course, the other thing that Zoho, certainly wanted us to reflect is that, while they do have this centralized platform, they do have integrations with other things because let's face it, it's few and far between that any organization is, a true single platform vendor. The other thing I'd like to mention there that's really interesting is they are a privately held company. They had a whole presentation really talking about their core values, all of which were really laudable. They haven't fired anyone in gosh knows how many years. They take an ethical approach to where they actually locate their offices. They
Hmm.
tend to go second and third tier markets, hire locally, and then pay them a wage, people wage that is fair, and then they don't ask people to move to Silicon Valley or to New York or wherever. So it's a very interesting company. The only question I had after all of this is, what is the potential downside? Not everything can be rosy, but today I'm not sure. I think the only thing I would say is that as they grow, it might be hard to kind of maintain those values.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so because but your employees are your biggest assets, and you empower them, you'll get more out of them. And I think that's the mantra for
Mm.
Zoho. And it's the business model is unique but good, and also the low entry point. Because once companies put all their data into an application, they're not going to want to really move it unless there's a compelling, you know, case for that, right? There has to be a business value for them to do that. Otherwise, they're going to stay where they're at because it's time consuming. Your time is worth money. So, when companies say how much did it cost, I can't just say, hey, it costs from whatever you put on a piece of paper. And, from a financial where you move money, it has to be what it costs physically for those people to actually do the work. So if it takes this amount of man hours or, conversations, even this discussion here costs out, money because of the fact that we're talking. So
Right.
I think that it's something that Zoho has figured out how to maximize that certain small to medium business. So
Right.
kudos to them.
Yeah. The other thing I think that's important to mention about them, and really we could say the same thing about SAP, about Pega, is obviously AI is a focus. Everyone is rolling out their assistant. Some of them are called co-pilots, probably more than I would like to refer to them,
Yep.
but others are, Pega has their Gen AI buddy, what have you. I'm curious to get your impression on all of these sort of Gen AI assistants. Are they going to become essentially table stakes, pretty equivalent in terms of overall functionality? What's your sense?
I think that they're only going to be successful if the data is there to use, to be utilized by AI. So I think companies will fail if they don't have a successful data management strategy because the data is the key to the success of AI. And if they have it put into place, I think it will be very good. But at the same time, I'm not sure that most companies are focused on that data management strategy. They're looking at these demos and these really nice. It's like going shopping and you walk through by a window and it looks good, but I'm not. My physique doesn't really lend to putting those clothes on. It won't look good on me, but it looks good there. I think it
Right.
not the best analogy, but at the same time, how is it going to work? What are the keys? I don't think the vendors are really telling their customers what they need to have in place to have a successful AI program, and that means like the processes again, the people, and putting that in place to maximize. And what does a data set look like? What's the connection to your ERP systems? What other data sets are necessary to maintain that equality? And then I get my AI strategy um, to be successful. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I would agree with that, and I would say that the problem is that, as you mentioned, it's very appealing and very interesting to talk about generative AI and all the crazy things that it can do. When you start talking about data management, data governance, that's where it doesn't sound as sexy, but it's actually even more important. And I would love to get your thoughts. You went to another event. In fact, you just got back from Databricks. I'm curious to see if there was any discussion about these sort of more fundamental topics around data.
Yeah, so they have a data intelligence platform, and theirs is all about data and AI. And they have a very interesting story, and what the intensity of this event was was actually fabulous. I was very impressed. So they're kind of that middle layer. So if you have all these different applications and you need a platform to put them, and just the data does not sit with them, it sits where it resides, then you have a chance to put together the intelligence around all that data and the applications that the data is coming from. An example is I talked to and this is a wild story, one of the major top five airports in the country. And I sat down with them to see what their take is on Databricks and how they use them. They have about 250 different applications, and none of them talk to each other. And this is a major airport. And I'm like, well, who's the genius who put that together? So anyway, you know, they none of them talk. So what is going on is Databricks is has put that together. They have a dashboard that puts everything into a nice, gift wrap dashboard. Now they can understand the passenger journey. They can understand the parking, the traffic going into the airport, the what flights are on time, what or not. What I guess terminals are crowded, what baggage claims, on and on and on. Information about the actual person that's traveling. So the traveler's journey is a big deal, and now they can really make adjustments. And if I told you that airport, which I will behind the scenes, it still runs pretty well. But at the same time, Databricks is a chance to aggregate data and AI together to give this intelligence that I think that middle layer that is going to be very popular, which already is. I think it's about a $45 billion company, something like that. But and this is one of those mainstreams. Snowflake does the same thing. Another company called Cloudera does it as well. So these are going to be more of a way to put the glue that's needed, the gap between all these ERP systems and these SaaS applications.
Yeah, I'm glad you raised that issue because I think, when we look at it, we step back and go, why are there, 45 different, ERP systems? A lot of it is due to, either acquisitions or, even just, I mean, you look back in the pandemic a few years ago, sometimes companies had to stand up things very, very quickly just to get something done. Now that they've been able to take a breather, they go, oh my gosh, I have data here, data there, data everywhere. It's not talking. We're not getting insights. We're not able to look at things holistically and then apply AI and really automate a lot of these processes that it's 2024. We should be at least halfway to the Jetsons, by now. So
We should. At the same time, I think ERP companies are starting to modernize, meaning they're being more flexible, they're scalable, they're not as traditional on-prem and limited features. So they're
right.
taking advantage of the technology like the AI that we've been talking about. At the same time, you have this middle layer, or you have intelligence platforms that are allowing to put different systems together. I think the one thing that needs to happen is companies need to evaluate before they just grab another SaaS application and add it to their technology stack, because all it is it confuses everyone. And then how does the data get there? Who owns that responsibility? And that's really one of these caveats that I think is a growing problem and a headache, for these technology officers, and probably more to come, chief data officers. Because how are you going to manage all this data and where it goes, and why do you need it? And so I think these intelligence platforms will help reduce that. But at the same time, the modernization of the ERPs will bring that as well. But it's a big subject, because when I was talking to the SAP folks, I said, who owns that responsibility for the data? And they don't necessarily think they do. They just, if you use our system, here's the data, and then, we'll help with these programs, but at the same time, the vendor who it's going to owns that problem. And I think that that's a gray area right now. What's
You
your
know,
thoughts on that?
absolutely. I mean, we've talked about this, at different events, over drinks at the bar, and it's very, it's a problem because again, if you think about it from the vendor perspective, their goal is to provide a particular offering, to help them do a specific thing. And I think a lot of times the lines between who owns what data, who owns, the responsibility for vetting it, making sure it's clean, making sure that it's usable, you run into this whole issue where nobody wants to take on that responsibility because it's huge. But I think that ultimately there will be a need for someone to come in and take that responsibility, because you're seeing organizations rely on data that is outside of their organization. What I used to call like sort of ambient data, where it's like, hey, I'm going to the airport, but also I want to incorporate things like traffic data or weather data or
Yep.
whatever else to really provide that customer with a full picture of what's going on. But if we don't know where that's coming from or the validity or going back, and that's kind of a, not a great example, but you kind of get the idea. They really are trying to federate data from a lot of different sources.
Right. Right. But the responsibility has to be owned, and then the customer, they may or may not be savvy enough, and I think it poses a tremendous problem. And then that's part of the issue where we go forward with: is data management successful? Is your AI going to be successful? And it could be the fall of AI at certain companies because of this whole process that we're talking about. The data is not moving over correctly. There's not proper governance in place to get it all done right, and then there's no change management to make sure it's processed correctly.
Yeah, this all sounds like everything. It does go back to becoming a people problem in terms of making sure that policies, people align with the technology. So, but
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, but we could go on for hours and days and weeks and months and years about this. But we do need to wrap up. And as you know, Robert, one of the favorite things I like to do at the end of the show is provide an opportunity for you to rant or rave about something in the market, perhaps something in your travels. So I will kick it to you first. Do you have a rant or a rave for me this week?
Well, let's think about that. I think I'm going to rant a little bit about. I like Databricks. I like the way that their intelligence platform gives data a chance to be better. And it was an eye-opening event. They really did a great job from just the process of taking care of us, from an analyst perspective, allowing us to meet the right executives, allowing us to hear the things that we needed to hear, and explaining, how they're going to influence the market and change the market. And I think that that's a big topic today because data, it's not just about the features, it's about the functionality and the ROI and how the business impact is affecting these customers. So that was really something special. But there's a few other companies that do the same thing, and I like that space, and I like also the companies that help with these integrations, like a Super iPass with Software AG and a few other ones. So I like that middle layer. I like to rant about that a little bit in a positive way.
So I guess a
How about
rave.
you? A
Yeah.
rave. Yep. Sorry. I haven't been on the show a lot. I was
Oh,
confused. I had the hat on, and now
yeah.
I'm. I got home late, 2 in the morning last night from San Francisco. So that's a rave, and give kudos to Databricks for a well done job.
Awesome, awesome. And I will also, for some reason, I'm in a good mood, and I will rave about something as well. Being at Pegasystems, one of the really interesting things was we did a sort of a pre-briefing session for press and analysts, and their CTO, Don Sherman, actually came out and said, "Yes, we have a chatbot. We have an assistant to help you do things with generative AI. But we understand that that will become table stakes. We do not believe
Hmm.
that to be the reason that we are winning in the market or losing in the market." To me, it was refreshing to hear that candor that, look,
Hmm.
AI in of itself is not going to be a differentiator. Everybody's going to have it. Everyone's going to have their own version of a chatbot. Everyone's going to have their own version of an assistant to help a call center agent. What really is going to come down to it is how can an organization help how can a vendor help an organization manage its data to get the most out of those tools? How can an organization leverage generative AI to really look at the processes and workflows that underlie or underpin everything else in the organization? So it was great to hear that, because we both go to a lot of events and everyone says we have the best this, my chatbot can be your chatbot, all of that kind of stuff. And it's just really nice to see an organization realize that, hey, or admit that, hey, we have good technology, we like it, we wouldn't develop it otherwise. But in the end, that's not how we're going to compete and win.
Yeah, one question about that. So one of the things that I did see is at Databricks, they talked a lot about collaboration, that to get rid of the keyboards, to collaborate, that will never go away. But the combination of the data, the AI, and the collaboration is really the key. And I haven't heard a lot of companies talk about how important collaboration is. They talk about it, but
Right.
the key to success, I guess that goes back into the processes and the people. Was that talked about at Pegasystems?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the collaboration is going to be the key for everything, because if you think about how in the past, if you were to develop an application, your collaboration was, well, let me request it from IT. IT comes back and they give you something. You go, this does not do what I want it to do. You go back and forth and back and forth, time
Right.
wasting, resource wasting. Now, by using an app like Blueprint, you're able to collaborate in real time with whoever the stakeholders are before, during the planning process. So when it is ready to be developed, you have sort of a finished plan. You save time, you save money, effort. Everyone gets what they want, and hopefully, you don't got to do it again. So absolutely, that was
Right.
so.
Sounds good.
All right. Well, Robert, I see by the clock on the wall that's all the time we have today. So I want to thank you so much, as always, for joining me here on
Thank
Enterprising.
you.
Absolutely, and
Pleasure.
to everyone out there, I will be back again next week to report on all the happenings within the enterprise software market. So for Enterprising Insights, I've been Keith Kirkpatrick. Thanks a lot, and have a great week.